At LSE, we do moral and political philosophy in the same way we do all philosophy, which is in an interdisciplinary manner and in a socially relevant manner. So, moral philosophy is essentially about questions such as what is a good or flourishing life, what do we owe other people, and what do we owe other animals. Political philosophy looks at questions at the level of states or communities. We look at questions such as how should we distribute benefits and burdens fairly, who should be part of a community, and how should power be exercised. In our department, we try to answer these questions by drawing on natural and social science. So for example, we have colleagues who work on animal sentience, and they draw on new insights from animal sentience to propose ways in which we should treat animals. And that's one of the distinctive bits about our department, how we try to shape legislation, shape norms and policy reports, and work with civil society organizations and even private companies in order to improve the world.
Many countries have seen an increase in divisive identity politics. But most people tend to think that identity politics is inherently at odds with the ideal of deliberative democracy, because deliberative democracy is about a rational exchange of reasons. One key question in my research is whether deliberative decision-making can decrease identity-based divisions. Is the deliberative ideal still tenable in deeply divided societies? And if so, under which conditions do deliberative interactions contribute to social cohesion? Building on that, my research explores the optimal design of deliberative decision-making institutions. Take the British electoral system as an example. This system with geographic electoral districts might not encourage representatives to search for a common good. It might rather incentivize them to deepen social divisions.
I work on two questions in justice. The first is distributive justice. Who should get what? The second question is about procedural justice. Who should decide who gets what? Whose views are taken into account and whose interests are heard? I'm especially proud of working together with people from lots of different disciplines, health policy, health economics, public health, and policymakers to develop two reports on the two aspects of justice that are the focus of my research. The first one for the World Health Organization was on fair priority setting with limited resources. The second one for the World Bank is on how to make decisions fairly to finance universal health coverage.
So much of my research is about the ethics of causing harm on the one hand and protecting people from harm on the other. Now, what's fascinating but very difficult about these questions is that they're often intertwined. In some cases, it's not possible to protect people from harm without causing harm in the process. So think about cases of self-defense or war, or even justified violence against oppression. Much of my research aims to uncover the principles which can help us distinguish cases of justified force from unjustified. I've recently been awarded funding to work on a project which explores the tension between protecting people from harm while respecting their autonomy. The project is called Not in My Name, The Ethics of Acting for Others. One thing I'm particularly proud of is that my research directly informs my teaching at the LSE. I've learned a lot from my discussions in the classrooms with my students, and I've recently completed a textbook on the ethics of humanitarian intervention to help me better introduce students to those discussions.
So my research focuses on war, poverty, and migration. We tend to think of these issues as distinct, but what I've explored is the ways in which these issues are actually philosophically connected. So for instance, when it comes to war, when we think about the arguments against fighting certain wars, we tend to think about the direct costs of the violence, or the lives lost, or the property destroyed. What gets missed is the opportunity costs. So that's all the things that we could have done had the money that was spent on the war been directed elsewhere. So for instance, one possible opportunity cost of war is a failure to address poverty. And the thought I've had is that once you factor in these opportunity costs of war, some of the wars that we might think could possibly be justified might turn out to be unjust. So one thing I'm proud of is the work I've done in terms of public-facing philosophy. So I think it's so important to share your research whether it's with people who've had experience in philosophy or no experience at all. So one thing I've done is I put on a show at the Edinburgh Festival that talked about these really important issues concerning the ethics of war, but did so using humor and drama and public debate.
The LSE Philosophy Department is an amazing place to work in. It's full of different people looking at different problems from different perspectives. And in addition to that, we have the students. They are always the perfect sounding board to test our research. I am interested in the power of images. I am interested in understanding whether we could learn about philosophical concepts by looking at them, by seeing them. So imagine, how would it look to visualize the concept of political unity, or the concept of consent, or the philosophical idea of the general will, or the social contract? What would they look like visually? My research explores this possibility of learning from our political vocabulary through the power of images. We live in a radically visual culture, so I'm trying to use AI image generators to push the limits of this connection I'm trying to draw between philosophy and visual images.
When I think about our department, which I joined 20 years ago, one of the things I'm most excited about is how much we've grown and how many new areas of moral and political philosophy we cover. When I joined, it was just me and one or two others, primarily doing questions in distributive justice. And now we have well over a dozen researchers doing questions such as migration, war, animal rights, ethics in AI, and the list keeps growing. I'm super excited to see what's going to come next.